In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the pluses and minuses of getting ASCP certification as a Canadian pathologist assistant. To start off, let's look at some of the advantages of getting it. The first reason I could think of is better job opportunities. Now, not every job requires even Canadian certification, but there are a number of jobs I've seen posted both on the East and West Coast that will say under their qualifications for the application that ASCP certification is preferred. And when I read that, I think to myself that that means if they have a number of applicants, that they'll be looking for the applicant, or they will select an applicant over others who has ASCP certification. So that's a plus in my books. Also, if you are interested in ever being a program director for a NAACLS PA program or the clinical or education coordinator, those programs are required to have an ASCP certified PA in those positions. So that could be, again, increasing your job opportunities for the future. Next thing up on the list is you have a limited time frame in which you can actually write the ASCP exam. After graduating, you have a 5-year window in which you can apply and write and pass the ASCP exam. And I think it would just be better to get it done and out of the way and be covered in that sense in case you change your mind, 5, 8, 10 years down the road and think to yourself, I really should have gotten that certification after all. Next on the list is, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, but you can work in the US as a PA. Go Hawaii, maybe not Alaska, but let's be real here. If we go to Hawaii, it's sunny, lots of beaches, we're probably just gonna burn. We're used to the cold and the snow, and hey, Alaska's pretty much like home already, but maybe just a little bit darker, and who sees the sun in a lab anyways? Next thing on the list is the ASCP exam. As an exam itself, it's easier to book a writing location than the Canadian exam. The Canadian exam has limited write dates and locations where you can write, whereas the ASCP exam is administered through testing centers. And this means that you can book a time and location wherever is most convenient for you. And this is, I think, very important, especially within the last 2 years where traveling to an exam write has not been necessarily feasible or easy to do. And then lastly on this list, I think the status of having those extra few letters after your name could be important. But actually being a ASCP certified PA, I think is important in that sense that you're part of a additional community of PAs within the workforce. And to some people that is very important, and they like having, that title and extra status along with their position that recognizes the amount of work they've put into their education over the past several years. Now, some reasons why maybe you don't want to certify. First of all, there is a cost associated with certification. No surprise, but the cost for writing the ASCP exam is about $530 US, which comes out to around $675 Canadian right now. And then there's also a recertification fee every 3 years of $95 US. Again, that's not going to break the bank, I don't think, but if you are a student coming fresh out of a program and you have a lot of student loans that you're looking at, that extra several $100s might be something you're considering. Again, put against the backdrop of your total student loan debt or how much you're probably going to be making once you start working. It's probably not a huge sum, but something to be considerate of nonetheless. Additionally, if you certify offset of the CCCPA certification cycle, you're going to have to juggle 2 different certification cycles, which can be a bit confusing. Even if you certify at the same time as your Canadian certification, there's still 2 certifications you're going to have to maintain. So that can be potentially just a little bit of an extra headache, and you might not want to deal with that. Another thing is you don't need it for Canadian jobs. The ASCP is an American certification first and foremost, and if you have zero plans to move to the US for work, then technically you don't need it to work in Canada. And then our last sort of biggest con against the ASCP certification is, I think, the time commitment that it requires for studying. The exam is difficult. I think it's more difficult than the Canadian certification exam, and as a result, you might spend anywhere from 3 to 6 months or more preparing for the exam, and that can be potentially 5 to 10 hours a week you're studying to make sure you're prepared. And if you have other commitments, either friends or family or other recreational activities you'd rather be doing, especially once you start working full-time, that's a big impact in consideration. I know I wasn't thrilled to have to spend hours after I came home from work or use some of my weekend time to study for that exam, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and probably the earlier you get things done in terms of studying, the better, because you're still in that school studying mode. And now, if there are any other reasons either for or against getting the ASCP certification as a Canadian PA that you can think of, please just let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.